Hi guys, I'm John Carrick, author of Legacy of a Mad Scientist and The Legend of Ashley Fox. Today we are rereading Vertigo's 100 Bullets number 53, and we have the World Fantasy Tarot card, the Emperor, the Sphinx, the Riddle of the Sphinx, and that's relevant to what I kind of want to talk about today. We also have a conflicted card deck 4. We can do this one first because this one is really simple. If the electrical grid were to go down for years, how do you think your local community would deal with it? What would society look like? In Los Angeles, it would be insane. We would look like Johannesburg inside of 3 weeks. So, 100 Bullets 53. There are a few things that have happened in the last 24 hours. So I said that I might shoot a few of these back to back to catch up, but I don't think that's a good idea. I think I should do one a day until I get back to where I was. I backed this up about 4 episodes because I had been in what I felt a really bad mood, and I wasn't giving 100 Bullets the benefit of the doubt. It had been a much better story in my memory than the experience that I was having this past week, and I suspected that had more to do with me than with the actual comic. And I think I was right. There's a couple other things that have happened. So let's start with this. Shepard, this picks up where the last one left off, although we're jumping back and forth between 2 different places in time. This, we could say, is the present part of the story, but there is a future part of the story that is also included. We don't know how we got there. And there is a past part of the story that is also included. And it is only told through brief, sporadic memories of someone with memory loss. With someone with memory loss so significant, it changes their personality. That's Wiley. That's the Minutemen. There's a bunch of them that have been MK Ultra'd. Shepard here is having dinner with Anwar Madrid, who is one of the 13 members of the Trust, the richest families in Europe when America came about, grouped together and have been running the show ever since. And the Minutemen keep them from murdering each other. And a few years back, however long ago, maybe around, well, this happened right when the Twin Towers happened, so let's say 10, 15 years before that, the Illuminati, this group, the Trust, decided to get rid of their assassins who had their only job was to make sure none of them killed each other. And they decided to do away with them and that they'd be better off. And so they fired Shepard and Graves. Shepard still works for them. Graves won't speak to them. And they gave all the members of the Minutemen this MK Ultra drug that erased their memory. But now Shepard is getting them back together by having people speak the secret word that reminds them, that unlocks all their memories from the past. Graves is doing that. Shepard is letting the Trust know where that is, where that stands, how that's going. I really do have to get issue 25 because I want to see if they had Cole Burns kill Daniel Perez. So Anwar Madrid is arguing that it was the right move. We're better off than we've ever been. Until now, Shepard points out, this sort of thing never lasts forever. And now you're in more trouble than you were before. Madrid asks Shepard how many guys does he need. Shepard says bring them all, but I'm not going to use them. Keep them here with you. You don't need, I'm not going to, go hunting Graves. Madrid has come to the conclusion that Graves is coming to town to see him for whatever purpose, for whatever reason. And that is kind of what's going on, but now we're jumping back to the future where Wiley has taken Shepard hostage. Wiley is wearing the suit. He's had his memories restored to him. He knows who he is. He's got the suit and tie on. But now we go back to the past again. This is the next morning after Shepard met with Anwar Madrid and they had a few drinks. Wiley is now waking up at his friend Homer's place. After he and Dizzy split up, she wanted to call Shepard. He wanted nothing to do with it. He was calling his friend. He waited for him in the bar. Homer came and got him because So, well, let's get to that when we get to it. First, Wiley has to deal with the wife vacuuming because she's got some friends coming over for the equivalent of a Tupperware party, but with sex toys. Now, when I first reviewed this is one of the first places I went off that I was angry about. White people don't need all these other degenerates from all the other subhuman races coming in and filling white countries in Europe and America, Ireland, Sweden. We don't need that. We have plenty of our own degenerates. We have all the diversity we need. We don't need degenerates from other cultures. That did not get my channel struck. So I had a feeling over the last few days, I think the only people watching this channel are YouTube moderators who let me talk all kinds of shit, but it wasn't until I said one key phrase that they objected to it. And not just said the phrase, but pointed out the phrase in action. And when we get back to that issue, I'm going to do it again. So just warning you guys, whoever's watching this, I am learning a lesson in how to insult the powers that be, not whether or not I should. I am definitely doing my job with this channel. I absolutely am. So the world doesn't need these people, but they exist. Homer and his wife. Now remember, Homer just chased a beautiful girl down with this other degenerate named Warren and killed her with a bear trap. And he's living with this woman here in this small house in the bayou, very small house. And Homer, while Wiley, she tells Wiley where the coffee is, where the whiskey is. He puts whiskey in his coffee. While Homer and Harry, the owner of the bar where Wiley just happened to be hanging out, called the Palm Lounge, across the street from his hotel, he is having an argument with Homer, Wiley's friend. Now, Homer is Wiley's friend, and the reason Homer came and got Wiley, the reason Wiley is still alive, as Wiley comes out and Harry, who's the owner of the bar, takes off, Homer reminds Wiley that Wiley did time for him and that Wiley knows how to keep his mouth shut because he's wise. Wiley says, no one's ever accused me of being wise before. Well, you know how to keep your mouth shut. You did time for me. You're a stand-up guy. And Wiley says, well, I thought about what would happen if I didn't. And he says, and you ain't wise. Now, I know I went through that fast, but think about this. Wiley has had his memory wiped. Homer is a degenerate criminal who kills girls for fun on Friday nights. His wife is throwing a sex party, and I went off about white people have all the degenerates we need. I didn't object to the fact that white people are the villains of this series when there's plenty of other villains to go around, but in part because white people's villainy is so... This bad guy is such a terrible bad guy. Terrible bad guy. It's really well written. It's really well written. That's why it's so convincing. That's the part of it that makes him such a terrible bad guy, is how well written it is. Like the Elmore Leonard-ness of this series. But that's not what got my channel a strike. Talk shit about white people all day. They don't mind. There's one protected group. I talk shit about Latinos. I've talked shit about blacks on this channel. I've said that we should not let them speak our language. And that goes for this other group too. They have their own fake language that they stole from Greek and changed a little bit, pretending they have their own language. You'll never be us. You'll never be us. And you're so desperate to take over, so desperate to think that you run things. It's hilarious. So anyhow, Homer says Wiley stinks. He gives him a brief shower. Wiley says, I'm going back to my hotel. Talk to you later, Homer. Homer says, come over tonight. We'll watch the game. Wiley gets to the bar and standing in the street, looking between his hotel and the front of the bar. Now, there's something about this. Florida has this too, with really low curbs to the street, and England has this too, and I imagine France does as well. I've definitely seen it in images in Ireland, where there's a very low curb to the sidewalk. It makes for a very grounded feeling. Los Angeles and a lot of other big cities in America have very high curbs, so that when you step up off of the street, you are stepping out of the street. And this, in a lot of ways, keeps cars from jumping the curb. If you make the curb an extra, 6 to 8 inches high instead of the 2-inch curb you have here. But what that does in a place like the French Quarter or in Europe is it gives everything a very open, a very inviting feel. There's not this big separation, this mental separation, stepping up off of the street onto the curb, onto the walk the way they had in the Old West, the raised platforms that ran along the front of buildings that were only set up off the ground by small posts, no foundation, no basement. So Wiley's just standing out there in the middle of the street. And Gabe's, what are you doing out there like an idiot? And Wiley says, well, I'm trying to decide if I need a gun or a shot. And first Gabe says, how about a cold beer? And so they go in to have a beer. And this is good. Wiley asks Marty, his name is Marty, not Gabe, you buying? Well, it's my idea. So they go in and he buys him a beer and they talk for a bit. You really got a gun? He's all interested in Wiley having a gun. You can go get a gun. In some ways, a gun is required because if it's a power that you're allowed to have, it's your responsibility to know how to deal with it. And Wiley offers to show Gabe his gun. And you know what? This was part of my complaint. This was part of the stuff that I complained about, saying that Brian Azzarello didn't write this, that it's out of keeping with most of the other stuff of this book, and that it must have been artistic indulgence on the part of Eduardo Risso, and that maybe Brian Azzarello didn't give him a full script, and he just wrote something to write something. Now I think it's, it probably is Brian Azzarello, but it is cheap. And so for some reason, Wiley really needs a shower and invites Marty up to his room and lets him play with the gun while he's taking a shower. And Marty shoots him in the mirror. And that's something I hadn't even pointed out, that he pulls the trigger on Wiley's image in the mirror and shoots the mirror. And so earlier, what I was saying about Homer and Warren, they're real criminals, whereas Marty's just a retard. And this is a very good representation of what's going on in the culture war, in the race war. Our enemies are just fucking retarded, and they act on impulse, whereas the bad guys in our culture, guys like Homer and Warren, are really bad. But we don't have that many of them, because over thousands of years we bred murderers out of society, whereas they did nothing to stem the tide of retards in Africa. And that won't get my channel struck. I can talk all kinds of shit like that. But wait till we get up to issue 56 and I point out what I pointed out. And I don't need to get to issue 56 to point it out. It's very interesting that this part of the comic, where it gets dumb and boring and indulgent, I overuse that word, but when you get shit like this, that's what it is. And so now they think, the cops are at the door that quick, or hotel security. He literally just fired the gun. Wiley comes out of the shower naked and answers the door naked, as hot as it might be. And Shepard's wearing a trench coat, and Dizzy's in her cutoffs, and Wiley's naked with a little retarded guy in the room. And isn't that funny? Maybe I was reacting to that. So anyhow, Shepard and Dizzy and Wiley go down to the river to see if what they saw the day before was really something that they saw. So Dizzy and Wiley and Shepard go down to the dock, and Wiley is pissed. And Dizzy doesn't get exactly why until... So Shepard is asking all the questions. So she came running out here, and you were across the river. We were drinking, but yeah, we saw what we saw. And what was that? Look, are you a cop or something? And Shepard says he was a or something. And that's when... And Wiley is obviously being a dick. It just feels like you're trying to catch me in a lie. Shepard says that's not what he's doing, but Wiley's not buying it. And Wiley is giving Shepard attitude, but he also doesn't remember Shepard. He only knows that Shepard's in the briefcase. He really doesn't remember him. And Dizzy kind of gets in his face about this. This is a great scene, but I still think that this series, of all the series, this particular bit, Wiley runs the voodoo down. This is the most unrealized of the, that's clearly not the right word. Wiley's acting like a dick, but Shepard's the guy in his briefcase. Shepard's the guy who caused Rose's death. So Dizzy wants his help, and Shepard is just all about business. He's confirming that the girl's in the river. No fucking shit. Wiley does not have an answer. And he's clearly not in charge anymore. He's out of his depths. But this is Wiley's story, so Wiley is who we're sticking with. He goes back to the Palm Lounge, listening to Marty play the horn. Ronnie tells Wiley that a suit came in and sat down with Gabe for a while, and that Gabe might be getting a record deal as long as they don't put his face on the cover. And Harry arrives and asks if his wife has called, who he refers to as that cunt. Now I know the rules, YouTube. Now I know what I can say and can't say. Apparently, if you call a certain group of small hats greedy, that is beyond the pale. Everything else is perfectly legal. I've said the N-word on here a bunch of times. No objections to that. But if you come up with an example how a certain group of people are greedy, who happen to have most of the money in the world, we'll strike your channel for that. Interesting. So Harry, this is Harry, the owner of the bar, is complaining about his wife Diane because she is a junkie and she only calls when she wants money. But she owns the bar and he has to run it and keep her, Meanwhile, the cab drops April off and April just wants to listen to Gabe play. But Harry is her boyfriend, and Dizzy gets mad at Wiley for walking off and leaving her with Shepard down at the beach, down at the river. It's obviously a short walk from where they are to there. And she's yelling at him about treating Shepard like a dick, and Wiley explains that Shepard's the reason Rose is dead. So now Dizzy has to acknowledge that. And as far as we know, they have not slept together. She is doing all of this ownership on him like they're already a couple. And that's another thing I objected to. So they don't care that I come on here and talk shit about race mixing. That's fine. I don't get struck for that. But if you talk about them, if you talk about the small hats who own this platform and are trying to own the whole world, it's not going to work. Final solution's en route. So they go back and forth, and he decides to walk out with, this is good. So he says he's got evidence, the kind of evidence you don't argue with. And since he doesn't feel like arguing, he's going to go to a party and see you later. But before he goes, when he's walking out, he tells Gabe that that's a really good tune. Gabe says it's one of his own. And he's going to tell him the name of it. It's A Blue Day for Croatoa. And Wiley wakes up. And so this is important because the next few scenes, Wiley kind of loses it and takes Dizzy. So he just told Dizzy off, but he's about to lose his mind because of the word Croatoa. And then he invites Dizzy to come with him to this party with Homer. I could do these back to back, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna do them one at a time. And I'm probably not gonna do two today because my eye was hurting a lot this morning and yesterday too. So what do you think the world is gonna look like if the power goes out? Well, if the power goes out, there's a certain group of people who I called greedy, who have more to lose than everybody else. They're gonna find themselves in a lot of trouble. Nobody's gonna give these people any mercy. And they had better hope. They had better pray to a God they don't believe in. Swing all the chickens you can that people don't find out what you've been up to. Because there will be no saving you. See you guys tomorrow.